I want you to picture this. You are standing in a high-end jewelry store. The lights are perfectly dim, aimed precisely at the glass cases to make everything sparkle. The air smells like expensive perfume and quiet money. You're looking at an engagement ring. The salesperson, speaking in a hushed, reverent tone, tells you about the clarity, the cut, and how this stone is incredibly rare, a precious treasure from deep inside the earth that took millions of years to form. You feel the pressure sweating on your palms. You're about to spend 2, maybe 3 months of your salary on this tiny rock because that's what love looks like, right? But here's the surprising truth. If you walked out of that store and drove to a local pawn shop to sell that exact same ring 5 minutes later, they would offer you a fraction of what you just paid. Why? Because that rare stone isn't rare at all. In fact, they're incredibly common. Today, we're uncovering why diamonds are actually one of the most common gemstones on Earth, how a single company manipulated the entire world into believing they were scarce, and why you are still paying a fortune for a rock that isn't worth nearly what the price tag says. To understand why we pay thousands for clear rocks, we first have to look at what engagement looked like before the 20th century. Imagine trying to propose in the late 1800s. There was no rulebook. You might give a thimble, you might give a simple gold band, maybe a sapphire or a ruby if you were wealthy. But a diamond? Almost nobody did that. It wasn't a tradition, it wasn't a requirement. Before the modern diamond rush, diamonds were actually quite scarce. They were found in riverbeds in India and Brazil, and only royalty wore them. But then, in 1870, massive diamond mines were discovered in South Africa. Suddenly, diamonds weren't special treasures found in river mud. They were being scooped out of the ground by the ton. The market was flooded. This was a disaster for the diamond sellers. If anyone could have a diamond, then diamonds were no longer valuable. The rich didn't want what the poor could afford. The value was about to crash to zero. They had a supply problem. They had too much supply. So, how did they fix it? This brings us to the 3 steps of the diamond invention. The major investors in the diamond mines realized that if they competed against each other, the price would drop. So they did something drastic. They combined forces into a single entity called De Beers. This created a monopoly. They took control of the entire world's supply of rough diamonds. Think of it like a nightclub bouncer. The club inside is actually empty. There's plenty of room, but the bouncer sets up a velvet rope outside and only lets one person in every 10 minutes. The line outside gets long, and suddenly everyone thinks that club is the hottest place in town. That is exactly what De Beers did. They built massive vaults in London and stored millions of diamonds, refusing to sell them. They only released a tiny amount into the market each year to make them look rare. They created a traffic jam on purpose. But controlling the supply wasn't enough. They had to control your mind, too. In the late 1930s, diamond prices were falling again. The Great Depression hit hard. People needed food, not rocks. So De Beers hired an ad agency, N.W. Ayer. Their goal? To create a situation where almost every person pledging marriage felt compelled to acquire an engagement ring. They didn't sell the rock, they sold the emotion. In 1947, a copywriter coined the most famous slogan in history, "A diamond is forever." This was brilliant. It linked a physical object to the concept of eternal love. It also did something sneaky. It stopped you from ever reselling your diamond. If a diamond is forever, you don't sell it. This kept secondhand diamonds off the market, ensuring the price never dropped due to used inventory. They literally invented the 2-month salary rule in a marketing meeting. It wasn't an ancient tradition, it was a sales target. So, if the monopoly is so obvious, why do we still do it? For decades, this monopoly was so strong they could destroy any competitor who tried to sell diamonds outside their system. If a mine in Zaire tried to sell independently, De Beers would flood the market with similar stones from their vaults, crash the price, and bankrupt the mine until they joined the cartel. But recently, the money angle has shifted. Antitrust lawsuits in the US and Europe finally broke the official monopoly. Plus, we now have lab-grown diamonds. These are chemically identical to mined diamonds, but cost 30 to 40% less. So, if a lab diamond is perfect and cheaper, why do people still buy mined ones? Because the marketing was that good. We still believe that natural means valuable, even though the only difference is whether the carbon was pressurized by a machine or by the earth. The scarcity is gone, but the high price tag remains because we expect it to be expensive. So, I want you to look at that engagement ring again. Next time you see a diamond, don't just see a symbol symbol of romance. I want you to see one of the most brilliant engineering feats in history, not of geology, but of psychology. You are looking at a common pressurized piece of carbon that a company convinced the world was a priceless artifact. It's not just a rock, it's a monument to the power of a good story. If this surprised you, hit like and subscribe to Bob Explains, surprising stories for more hidden histories behind the everyday things you take for granted.